course, it's the end of the year, start of the new year, and everybody's like, well, how did 2024 really end up?
Yeah, because I feel like there are different kinds of people. There are people that are like, was last year successful? And I want to know quantifiably if it was successful.
Well, the answer is yes.
Okay.
So real estate here in our area was definitely on the uptick, and we made great strides. We got the numbers in, hot off of the press. When we compare 2024, the real estate market for our Dayton region, new listings were up by almost 5%. So there was 17,091 homes that were listed in 2024. The number of homes that were sold was also up just over 5%, 5.29% to be exact. That means there were 14,450 transactions that were completed.
So those 3,000-ish, are they still just on the market, or people
in
were like,
process or something, or didn't really hold, because our current listing inventory is just over 1,400 homes. So you always have a little bit of a cycle of what's completed, sold, and what's pending in process that's not counted in the active market. So
some of those sold is listed in 2023, but sold at the beginning of 2024.
correct. So there's
Okay.
always a little bit of a carryover with that. But the sales volume for 2024, I mean, this is impressive. It was just over $4 billion in our region alone. So that's pretty hefty. That's a 14% increase from 2023. That's big.
Yeah.
Sellers are still getting good dollars when they're selling, right? They're getting higher pricing benefit even with the higher interest rates. So let's talk about that, because the average price of homes in our area rose slightly. It rose 8.31%, so that's a little bit of a big bump. That's $277,780 as the average price. So that compared to what it was, a little bit of an 8% increase. So you aren't making 8% in your savings account on a year-to-year basis, are you?
No.
So it's still pretty wise for sellers if they want to sell.
So what'd you say the average home price was?
So the average price was $277,780.
Okay, so back, let's say 2019, those are the homes that were 150 to
Yes.
190.
174 probably was the average in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah, so we see how that has continued to escalate, which is the benefit. It's also the negative if you're the buyer's side. But we're going to talk about why maybe that isn't as big of a deal. Like, you are still gaining value in the home, so you feel like you're overpaying or maybe paying on the high end. But if the continuation of this equity buildup is happening, you're not losing ground, you're getting in, and then you're able to earn that equity when it's your home. So I think that's the perspective that needs to be looked at it. What's even more remarkable is that the homes continue to sell at or above their asking price. So we keep these ratio numbers of, is there closing cost assistance? Is there anything that really takes away from what the seller net is? So if they listed the home for $250,000, they really don't get to take $250,000 because they're having to give some money here. Buyers were able to get that benefit of closing cost assistance, or, hey, I can negotiate, maybe the price comes down a little bit. That's not happening. If you're not offering list price or a little bit above that, if you need some assistance, then you need to go above the list price in order to get it. It's probably not happening. It is a trend for our 2024 year that it was straight across 100%. So it listed at the price, it sold at the price. If it was closing cost included, then they went up on the price, which means that it's equaled out. So that is a really telling stat that we haven't seen before. So price values, when you go on the market and you're going to sell your home, it is so important to be listed at the right price. You know, some people want to try to play the game and list it for lower and create this feeding frenzy, right? And that's frustrating to buyers, because nobody wants to feel like they're getting pressured into paying more. I mean, you said you would sell it for $200,000. What do you mean you need more?
Yeah.
So that kind of works against some of that, and it also is a negative impact on the numbers. But if you list it right, that home's going to go quick.
Yeah.
I mean,
I feel like that's what I'm seeing just in our neighborhood, or, you know, whatever. There's one home that everybody thinks is overpriced, and it's been on the market for 6 months, but there's another one that listed and it went immediately. Yeah.
And that's really where the expertise of somebody who's in this all the time, who's looking at these houses and knows what really is happening in that particular neighborhood especially, is so important for people. Because, I mean, I get that a consumer first time or somebody that's not really experienced with it may think, well, it's just the realtor just wants me to do this deal because that's how they get paid. When I see that equity potential and I know the value of the home based on where it is, what the community has been doing, what are the comps in the area, who's the builder of the home, all those things really build to the validity of, hey, the time is right, let's make an offer, because you could lose out. And
Yeah.
when you lose out, as our experience was, it felt like there were sometimes 3 weeks that would pass and it was just nothing, and it was really depressing. And then all of a sudden we'd get things on the market and we had to go run.
Yeah. Especially like that first house that we didn't get, and it went for 100,000 over asking, and you know that it appraised for that.
Right.
So that plays into what it was listed for, and
Right.
what you were talking about.
Well, and that one we knew. We kind of went into that one specifically and said, man, this is a great price.
Yeah.
Like, at this price, this would be a get. Like, do it, make it happen.
Yeah.
And then I know when we were talking about the escalation clause, normally these things would make you nervous. Like, you don't want to pay more, but you also don't want to lose out on what you really see. And in that case, it checked all the boxes.
Yeah.
So I say, if it checks all the boxes, maybe that's a little bit more. You're willing to do a little bit more, right? Make it a non-contingent offer if you know that you're comfortable with it. Here's the thing. I'm going to protect you as my client in whatever way we can. No, I don't want you to have 2 house payments, selling your house and buying this one, making it non-contingent, get into where maybe that's the issue. But there are opportunities and ways to say, maybe come out of the offer if it really didn't work out. If something absolutely failed, is there something you can do? Generally, the answer is yes. And that's where you want to know that you have somebody who's working on your behalf, who's going to make sure you're not put into that dire situation, right? I would not want, just like I wouldn't want a buyer to come in and say, well, I really want this house. What should I offer over? Well, offer $100,000 over. And I wouldn't just say that, ever. But if in the case where the house met the bill and we know that it was underpriced, it was of value, you guys were comfortable in doing that. And I didn't have that gut reaction that, oh my gosh, what happens if? It was like, we were solid. We knew
Yeah.
it was going to be a deal still at going above that offer price.
Yeah. So going back to 2024 and into 2025, do you consider this a buyer's market or a seller's market right
It's
now?
still considered a seller's market. We still don't have the inventory to match our demands. So when you have a client who's looking for specific things, how many homes can you find that meet that criteria? And when I'm looking at less than 5 homes in a given week for their specific needs, that's not a buyer's market, right? Because 1 or 2 may really fit the bill when you walk through it. Online, they look good, but when you actually go through, you can probably wean some of those out. But when I have 10 or more homes for what they are looking for, then that starts to get into a buyer's scenario. So then it is going to come down to, what are the buyers looking for? Are they just looking based off of price? Or are they looking for features of the home? Are they looking for a specific area? And those 3 things, either combined or separately, can tell us if we're in a market for them. So where you had very specific needs, what we were looking for, that was a limited window. Somebody else who's just getting started, well, I could deal with a 1-bath or a 2-bath. It doesn't matter. And I could deal with a 1-car or 2-car. Well, if they have more flexibility like that, that opens that window of opportunities up for them. And then if they're like, well, I could drive 15 minutes from here or 20 minutes from there, either way. Well, now you've opened up communities. Now you have more options. But again, I'm sending you notices as soon as something hits the market that meets that general criteria.
Yeah.
And if you're not getting those from me all the time, every day, it's not a lot.
Yeah.
Like maybe you get one email from me a week and you're like, hello, is this thing on?
Yeah, right.
Like, is there anything out there? And that's when people start getting anxious, especially when they have a home that they're going to try to sell and then try to buy and they want to make one move. That makes it a little bit more complicated. But I'm going to say that's also, again, where my expertise and service comes into play, because I want to make sure that that is able to happen, right?
Yeah.
I don't want you to have to pack up and move twice, and I don't want you to have two payments, and I don't want you not to get what you're looking for. I want to try to meet all those criteria as a positive. So I'm going to do anything I can. In this last case, you know, you actually knew I was looking for somebody and a general idea. So you're like, hey, there's a sign that just went out. And I was all over that.
Yeah.
I'm like contacting the agent before this hit the MLS, like, when is it going to go live? I know I need to get in there. Even though I was out of town, I was going to drive like hell to get back and get through this property because it did fit the criteria of a client. Unfortunately, you know, and this comes back to that timing. Sometimes I may see that it's a great fit, but if the buyer isn't here, they're not able to walk through when I do, even though they give me, you know, that authorization to walk in on their behalf and tell them what's the story, what's going on. Sometimes it doesn't really impact them until they step foot in the house, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, I had done that once before. Loved the house, thought it was a great fit, sent them a video, here's what it offers, here's why I think it's a good deal. And that one didn't work out. But they walked through it and they loved it. And they were like, yeah, we're in on this. But it didn't work out. So in that case, I think I have a foot ahead to say, you trusted me there and it was a positive, right?
Yeah.
So this next time I felt like, oh, we're all in. We're ahead of the game. It's a Tuesday. Like, if I can get in it and I can get an offer written, we get that over to them. It's just new on the market. That really is a critical point of the timing of things. It's not just that you get in when it's first listed. You get the offer to the seller that first day if it's possible, right? And then you know you have the inspection process. You know you have these caveats throughout the process itself of the contract to say, well, this doesn't work, or I have issues, or maybe it's not a good fit, maybe it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
But in this case, it was like, get into the contract, and then there was a delay. And I'm like tapping my fingers. What's, hello? And, you know, it just didn't work out. They didn't sign it as quick as what I wanted. And what ended up happening is, instead of that offer being submitted on Tuesday evening, it was now submitted on Thursday. And because of that, and it was Thursday late afternoon, having to give 24-hour window for the sellers to give us a response pushed us to Saturday at noon. And that meant now Wednesday, Thursday showings, who then also see the viability of this home, priced well, great construction. Yep, this is we're all in.
Yeah.
We had competing offers. So instead of being first in the show, right, and getting that offer in where it could have been accepted that night or the next day even before other showings, because we were giving the seller what they wanted.
Yeah.
That really made the difference in this case, and what my client actually ended up losing out on this. Now, they didn't walk through it. They were still, that was their sticking point as well. We haven't seen it, so we're not really sure. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And I have to remind myself, I can't want it more than they do.
Right.
And until somebody walks through the house and has that level of comfort, sometimes that's just the way it's going to be. Even though we had this scenario where agent previews, and yes, it was everything, we're all in, and proven that it did fit the bill, right? I'm not going to go say this shack in the back over here is going to fit the bill if that's not actually what you're looking for. So
Yeah.
again, I know that that level of service really has to match so that expectations are met. But it's still a seller's market. So 2025, and we're coming up onto the spring season.
Yeah.
If you're a buyer and you know what you're looking for, if it comes up, you need to be ready to pull the trigger. Like, you need to be able to take action and make it happen and feel comfortable with that.
So when it's a seller's market, timing across the board. So from looking at it to putting in the offer, you need to be like, make a decision.
Yeah, because that hesitation is what's going to cost you. And, you know, it's not to put pressure on anybody, but it's just to realize, especially when the house is priced right and it's meeting all the criteria, what's the hesitancy? What's holding you back? If there is something holding you back, then we need to take a step back and actually look at it, because you don't want to be competing in a spring market when it's going to be even busier. Like, winter time is the time to make the deals, because people start getting anxious. Nobody's going to look. You don't have as many people coming through, yada, 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 right?
Yeah.
But now we're really bracing for what's going to be the spring market. And with these kind of numbers coming in on what was a change in real estate, we talk about the NAR settlement that took place, all the realtors up in uproar, still not having listing inventory, and we make a 14% gain over the year.
And we had a significant interest rate increase last year.
Higher interest rates, political change. I mean, you throw all those dynamics in there and you come out with that kind of a number.
Yeah.
2-digit number increase, people. That says a lot.
Yeah.
So, time is still now.
So, what are some other things that change that buyers need to be aware of in a seller's market?
Just the difference in what you can ask for. Realistically, it's tough. And if you're a buyer, especially a first-time buyer, and you're going to need some assistance, if you need $5,000 assistance so that you're not having to physically come out of pocket that money, then you have to bump your price up to help compensate for it, so that it's not technically coming out of the seller's pocket either. You're just getting to be able to cover that into your interest, into your loan program. And so that's probably the harder thing for people to realize, is because, like, you know, I need some help with these closing costs, and maybe they have to pay their realtor fee. So, you know, all of these factors that are now in there, I'm paying a higher price and I'm paying a higher interest rate. They have to get their head wrapped around that. And I've said, you know, if the interest rates just stay, I'd love for them to come down, but if they just stay instead of this flip-flop everywhere and people get anxious about it, people settle in to the norm.
Yeah.
Right? So if it's going to be 7%, then it's going to be 7%.
Which is still better than the 80s
Right.
at 17%.
Yes, and you're still making money on the house because you're still gaining the equity. So you're not flushing it away in your rents. You know, you're doing your mortgage payment. I mean, you have to weigh out the positives, but there are definitely positives in these numbers.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. If you have any specific questions, feel free to reach out.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today on the Realty Podcast. If you enjoyed the knowledge and entertainment today, please subscribe and share with your friends. We will be embarking on a journey that bridges the gap between realtors and clients, uncovering the heart and tea of real estate.